This is embarrassing. This is what I thought I was going to carry around Elmhurst College just because I wanted to be a cool college kid. My first ever laptop, purchased $19.99 from Best Buy. Pretty sure my parents paid for this as well. It was kind of a congratulations for making it into Elmhurst College gift. I don't know how much this costs. I don't want to know what laptops cost in $19.99. You don't want to know what laptops cost in $19.99. This was not cheap. I don't think this was a high-end system, but again, this was the dawn of the internet era, the multimedia era, and this does have some pretty cool features. This was a cool laptop, but this ain't lightweight whatsoever. Not that many laptops were, but you know what this thing has that many laptops don't these days? Ports, and just about every single port you can imagine. We'll get into this. This laptop has seen better days as well. Has some hinge issues. It's also, again, another system that no longer powers on. It's completely dead as well. This is a Compaq Presario. Yeah, Compaq. Some of you may not know that name. Compaq was a pretty popular computer brand, and then they got kind of bought out by HP, and then the Compaq name disappeared. Compaq Presario 1675. A little sketchy on some of the specs on this thing. I believe it was 266 megahertz. It was an AMD, my first ever AMD processor. I think it was K62. Hopefully that's the right era. That's what's popping in my head right now. AMD K62, 266 megahertz. I unfortunately do not remember how much hard drive space was on this thing. It was a pretty cool system at the time. Little latches, pop it up. It has the internet zone. Again, it's got some multimedia buttons, you know, because you might want to press a single button to load up your mail. Outlook Express, probably. The check mark. Little circle button. I think this is a search button. Probably open up Internet Explorer, and a I button for information. Bunch of LED status lights. This was a pretty cool laptop for its time, and probably why I picked it out. I do kind of faintly remember the day I picked this out at Best Buy. Yeah, here's our broken hinges, but thankfully it still opens and closes just fine. A very nice size keyboard. Apparently I never removed that sticker. Absolutely silly how small this touchpad was, but never really bothered me. I may have used a mouse. Left click and right click. Your information button, I don't remember exactly what that did. Here's your little search button, which I imagine would open up Internet Explorer at the time. Your little check mark, not sure what that does either. And then your mail button, which I guess would open Outlook Express. Again, this is a Windows 98 machine. I don't know if I mentioned that. I did eventually get Windows 98 2nd edition, I believe, on this. And this was notorious for blue screening. Well, Windows 98 was. This is also, you know, my second internet PC. So that Acer Inspire with Windows 95 was my first ever computer to have internet access. Dial-up, of course. And then when I got this, I had internet access as well. I don't think this thing had Wi-Fi, though. It was dial-up, obviously. This was kind of the dawn of the internet, too. I didn't have the best internet security practices, so yeah, I went to all the random links. I downloaded all the random free software, stuff that I would absolutely scold myself for today. So, yeah, I had plenty of icky software, and I'm sure lots of malware, spyware, and that stuff. This thing constantly blue screened. one of the biggest issues here. All I had to do was look at it wrong and it blew screen. But yeah, Windows 98, second edition. And I probably could have gotten Windows Me on it, but I never upgraded. Here's all your activity lights. It's pretty cool. You got your swappable battery here. That's not a given these days. DVD-ROM. I believe this was my first computer system with a DVD in it. Here is your information about Compaq Computer Corporation. File number. All that fun stuff. This was the RAM memory expansion slot. And we have another expansion slot on the other side. I think this is for like PCMI A stuff. This is how you would hook up Wi-Fi if you had one of those dongles. I think this is where you could hook it up to Ethernet, but I never did, obviously. I don't remember. And we still had a floppy drive. Headphone and microphone jack on the front. And then all of the things on the back. Here you got your little power plug, USB, probably 1.0. And not really sure what a lot of this stuff's for. There's like serial, parallel port. If you hook up in your printers back in the days. You have your keyboard and mouse combo PS2 port, and then here is your dial-up. This is also one that I really don't have a need to restore. I got the files off of it successfully, and it's Windows 98. And to be honest with you, it's probably the worst operating system I ever used on one of my systems. But at least it was designed for Microsoft Windows 98. And then we entered the year 2000, the new millennium. All my PCs, yes, even that Windows 3.1 Packard Bell, survived Y2K. There were a few glitches here and there, reading dates between Windows 3.1 and DOS, but otherwise it was fully functional. Other than the whole weird boot issue, I'm sure by then it was only booting off of that floppy disk. Life was pretty good. Our Acer Aspire Windows 95 desktop was upstairs in the little office nook. If you really want to, you can check out my North Lake Fire videos to see that area. My still fairly new Compaq Presario Windows 98 second edition laptop was usually just hanging out in my room somewhere. By the year 2000, my Packard Bell Windows 3.1 PC had already been designated to version 2.0 of Wayne's Arcade World down in the basement. Then 2004 rolls around, and dude, I wanted a Dell. Didn't you want a Dell in 2004? Do you remember the Dell commercials? With that dude that was under the influence of something, I think? Dude, you're getting a Dell. Well, dude, I wanted a Dell. So I got a Dell. The first PC that I actually paid for myself. The first PC that I ordered online was a Dell Dimension 8400. Yeah, you ordered them online back then just like you do today. That was the way to get them. Of course, I had to customize it exactly to my liking. Funny enough, from my last desktop purchase, that Acer Aspire, which had a revolutionary design, different from the rest. I ordered a PC that was very, very typical for that period. Still cool looking, but very, very typical. If you worked in an office in the mid 2000s and your company had Dell Dimension PCs, you know exactly the design that I'm talking about. You yourself may have had one of those Dell Dimension PCs back in the day. One, same, very familiar design no matter the model. Most often people had the Dimension 4600. I upgraded and got the 8400, which allowed me to have an extra expansion bay or two and whatever extra perks came with that. It was a Pentium 4, 3.4 gigahertz, 1 gigabyte of RAM, 128 megabyte PCI Express ATI Radeon X800 SE. Yeah, my first ever PC to have a GPU. I did not know anything about GPUs back then. I really don't even know what GPUs are good today. I just probably picked something in the middle of the road that wasn't too expensive. Again, everything was customized. I had a DVD ROM. I had a DVD plus minus RW, the DVD writer that would also write to the CDs. And just because I also put a 3.5-inch floppy disk in there. It also had a Sound Blaster Audigy 2 sound card, 400 gigabyte hard drive. Total price after tax just under 3,000. Just about 3 times what I'm paying for this new laptop. How do I remember those details so well, especially since I no longer have the PC? Well, I have the original invoice email from Dell saved in my email. I did try to future-proof that thing a little bit. The next Dell that I would purchase, I did the same as well. But man, the mid-2000s was peak time for the Dells. Rockstar PCs. My used laptop that I'll show you in a little bit was also from that era. Very reliable machines. Built a lot better. The rest of my Dells would come in the early 2010s. And still reliable. I had a few little issues here and there though with future PCs and Dell, but we will go into that when we get there. As far as the Dell Dimension 8400, if you aren't really sure about the design, if you remember a Dell from that time period where you had to kind of lift a little door in the middle of the PC to get to the USB drive, and I believe the headphone and microphone jack, which were at an angle, which was kind of annoying. But if you do remember that, yeah, that's the exact design. Like I said, most workplaces and folks had the smaller 4600, but I did upgrade to the 8400 that allowed me to get those two different DVD and DVD RW drives. And from that invoice, it does say that I got a free upgrade by getting one. I got the other one for free, so that was cool. Considering the time period and how much components cost back then, a little under 3,000 probably wasn't that bad. I'm sure that Compaq Presario laptop costs significantly more. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure what my parents paid for that, and I probably don't want to know. But that was an absolute rockstar PC. Now, Windows XP did Windows XP things, and I still hadn't learned from my experience with a Windows 98 laptop and downloading all the things, clicking on all the things, because of course you need 4 helper toolbars on your Internet Explorer, because why? Well, it's free. Hey, if it's free, I should get it, right? I was really stupid back then. Completely honest. A lot of us were foolish on the early days of the internet, but just because it was free didn't mean I have to download it. And on that one, yeah, I dealt with all the weird viruses, the random pop-ups and something randomly changing my homepage on Internet Explorer. The absolute worst and most annoying thing that ever got onto that PC was some sort of quote-unquote radio virus. This is a thing. It's not talked about too much on the internet, but you could find old forums and sites like bleepingcomputers.com that do have people asking about this. There was a certain virus, a certain malware that would kind of run a radio show and commercials in the background when you had your computer on, and you couldn't turn it off. There was nothing to uninstall. It just hijacked your system and played at a low volume, very annoying, these radio ads and commercials. It sounded like there was a radio show, and there was no way to turn this off. And I went through so many malware bytes and those type of programs to try to get rid of it. Now, I had this PC for a long time,
well after I moved out of Northlake. It became my family's main PC. I had reinstalled Windows XP several times, mainly to get rid of these viruses and just have a clean, fresh install of Windows XP. After I moved out, like I said, it was my family's main PC for the longest time. Eventually, when Windows XP just wasn't running well anymore, I dumped that and installed Lubuntu, so a lightweight version of Ubuntu. Ubuntu was kind of the Linux distro that I was familiar with. So I installed that on there. I had to reinstall that once or twice too when it crashed. But that PC lasted from 2004 until sometime pretty darn close to 2020. Maybe even a little after. I'm not sure how long my parents had that thing running before they gave up on it. It did, start to have a lot of mechanical problems at some point, but got a lot of good use out of that. And not surprised, that Windows XP laptop that I featured already in some live streams is still running today. Turns on just fine. But yeah, we did, eventually retire it. But and that's the reason why I don't have it, because when my dad, it was kind of my dad's thing. He just basically watched YouTube on it at this point. And he was finally done with that. He put it in the garage. And really just over the last couple of years or so ago, and this is before the fire, obviously, he invited me over and, showed me the PC that was still sitting in the garage, said, "Do you want this?" And of course, as you could tell, I already have so many unusable PCs around the house. And I said, no, that's okay. So the reason why it's not hanging out here in McHenry is because it served as my family's PC well after I moved out of Northlake. Oh, and I also successfully upgraded it to 2 gigabytes of RAM, all by myself. Really proud of myself. All the files are safe from that thing as well. By that point, I was already backing up files onto external hard drives, so before every Windows XP reinstall and then the installation of Lubuntu, I made sure that I had everything backed up. And that was really about it until the 2010s, after I had moved out of Northlake. For a little while, my wife and I were using her old Compaq Presario desktop. Nothing super special, but it worked. Before we get into that era, though, sometime in the late 2000s, I acquired this used Dell Latitude D520. Now, this has been featured on the channel. We've played some old games like Space Pinball, the Windows Entertainment Pack. I'm not sure how old this is, but this is around the same Rockstar era of Dell that Dell Dimension 8400 is from. They don't make them like this anymore. And again, look at all the crazy amount of ports this has. Another one of these little expansion slots. Speaker and microphone. CD-ROM drive. Docking station. I had to remove the battery recently because it is completely dead and was giving me a bunch of error messages because of that. We'll go into it more when I do my official unboxing and review of my new laptop that is still yet to come in. But I hate to sound like the Dell dude, but dude, they make laptops so thin now, they don't even have an HDMI port. You get like a couple Thunderbolt, and that's it. Maybe a USB-C if you're lucky. It is absolutely insane. Now, my new laptop's not going to have all these ports, obviously. Majority of this stuff's outdated and no longer used anyway, but it's got some ports at least. It's just insane that they need to make these laptops so thin and fragile, in my opinion, that nothing. It's like no ports, nothing. USB-C, yeah, oh boy. Yeah, get an actual USB, a real USB-A or whatever. No, it's the USB-C and the Thunderbolt, and that's it. That's all we can fit in our paper-thin laptop. That's what they're making these days. Not the one I'm getting. And finally, we have a PC that I can actually turn on and talk about the specs. It has a 40 gigabyte hard drive, Microsoft Windows XP Professional version 2002, Service Pack 3 with an Intel Celeron M CPU 410 at 1.46 gigahertz and 1 gigabyte of RAM. And the thing still turns on and it runs. It runs very slowly, but it runs. And currently today, serving as my Windows XP shrine, allowing me to play 16-bit games from the Windows 3.1 era that will no longer play easily on Windows 7 and beyond.
And we have finally made it back to our office where our quote unquote modern PC systems are, neither of which are at all modern, but we are using still today. Now I gotta talk a little quiet. I have 2 sleeping dogs in the other room. Now, before we go over our current family desktop PC and the Memories by Wayne video editing laptop, there is one more PC, a desktop, that we need to discuss. 2009, after I had married and moved in with my wife, the Compaq Presario desktop PC that she had was on its last leg, so it was time to purchase another desktop, and of course, I had to purchase it from Dell. I mean, look at how reliable that Dell Dimension was. So it was a no-brainer to purchase another Dell. I went through that whole process of customizing it and ordering it online. Now, I don't remember if I still have the invoice emailed from that purchase, but what I do remember of it, it was a Dell Studio. It was this really sleek piano black looking Dell PC, just real shiny black, all sort of curvy edges to it. It was really sharp looking. Also, being a Dell Studio, very focused on multimedia applications. It had all the ports. It had a media card reader for your SD card and all the other ones. I'm pretty sure I at least got a DVD plus minus RW on it. The one thing I definitely remember about it, it had Windows Vista. Yes, the beloved Windows Vista. It ran pretty well on that PC. I am pretty sure it had 4 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte hard drive. I'm pretty sure I had a dedicated GPU on that thing as well, but that's about all I remember of it, except for the fact that it only lasted about 2 years before it died. Thankfully, I had the extended warranty from Dell that included in-home tech support. I had tech agents come out to my house multiple times to try and troubleshoot the thing. They couldn't get it working, and long story short, it got shipped back to Dell for a replacement. And I received this Dell XPS 8300 as a replacement back in late 2011, and we're still using it as our family's PC today. It has a little tray up here with 2 USB ports, microphone, headphone jack. Also has the media card readers, DVD RW. There's supposed to be little flaps here that hide these bays, but my daughter kind of ripped them off when she was younger with her foot. Another expansion bay that I never used. And if you flip this door down, we have a spot like if you want to put another floppy drive in. A couple more USB drives. XPS, Windows 7, Intel Core i5. Not sure if I mentioned it or not, but that Dell Studio had an Intel Core 2 Duo. Now, while the Dell Studio had 4 gigabytes of RAM, this thing has 6 gigabytes of RAM, so I got a free upgrade there. And I also got a free upgrade from Windows Vista to Windows 7, which, yes, is still running on this thing because I refused to update it to Windows 10. Yell at me if you want. I definitely had some concerns on whether I was going to have enough system resources to run Windows 10 on this thing. Also, the Windows 10 NADware. The pop-ups that kept coming into the Windows updates reminding me that my system was soon going to be unsecure and I had to update to Windows 10. Very scary. So it was kind of out of spite as well that I ultimately decided not to update this thing to Windows 10. And honestly, I have no regrets. I feel this is one of the most secure systems that I've ever had. I've never had any viruses on this thing. The thing barely ever blue screens. You just need to have common sense, which I didn't have back in the 90s and early 2000s. And even though this thing is no longer supported, I still get Windows updates. Regularly, I get this Windows malicious software removal tool, which checks for malware and viruses, whatever, when I restart my PC. Now, let's go over some system specs. 1 terabyte hard drive, same as the Dell Studio had. Windows 7 Home Premium, Service Pack 1, the Dell XPS 8300, Intel Core i5 2400, CPU at 3.10 gigahertz, 6 gigabytes of RAM, 2 gigabyte update from the Dell Studio, and thing still runs well. Fortunately, we are running into some issues now where obviously things are not updating or runnable because I have Windows 7. Chrome will no longer update to the latest version. My daughter just told me the other day that Roblox will no longer run on this thing because it has Windows 7. So yes, I have not bought a desktop since 2009. Not quite as bad as not buying a laptop since 1999. And this PC has not gone without its problem either. Barely a couple years into owning this thing, I could no longer get an internet connection. Now, I don't know if I ended up calling technical support on this, but what it ended up being was the Ethernet port on the motherboard went bad. And after a little Googling, forum searching, I ended up buying a dedicated Ethernet card that plugged into the PCMI port, resolved the issue, and it's been running fine since. And finally, the other used laptop that I acquired, a Dell Latitude E5430. Even though this laptop is soon being replaced on this desk, it will always have a special place in my heart, because this is a laptop that I edited and uploaded my first Memories by Wayne video back in 2016. And it has been my main video editing station ever since. Windows 7, Windows Movie Maker, videos that I'm currently editing and uploading today in 2025, I'm doing off this thing. Let's go over some specs. 500 gigabyte hard drive, Windows 7 Professional Service Pack 1 that has an Intel Core i5 3230M CPU at 2.60 gigahertz and 4 gigabytes of RAM. This has, as you may have seen from a previous live stream, an original installation of facade. Soon we are going to have a much better video editing and gaming laptop. That's to come in the next video. Thank you for watching.